Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. Today we are in session number 5 of ABAP on HANA. Okay, so let's just quickly go through the agenda for today's session of what we are going to learn in today's session, and then we would be starting with the practicals. Okay, so on our agenda for today's session, we have a couple of things. First of all, we would be extending our discussion with the core data services from where we started. So we started with a non-parameterized CDS view. We consumed it in a sample program as well. Now we would be going with certain parameterized views as well. We would be learning the REST API architecture, session variables, and how we can also expose the CDS view as an OData service. After having that completed, we would be jumping on to a very important topic called ways and importance of key definition. Okay, how I can determine what would be the primary key for my view and what is the importance of that. Okay. Afterward, we would be learning joins, which is very simple, but yeah, as it's also part of the CDS, we would be going through it at a glance. Then we would be learning certain built-in functions called grouping function, unions, and everything. And most frequently, we found a requirement in a project that we want to extend existing CDS view. So how we can do that? Certain normal CDS view with the union, with the group by, certain standard CDS view, how it can be done. That is something we would be seeing in today's session. Then we would be learning certain built-in function, uh, the SQL function called numeric string manipulation function, the unit conversion and currency conversion functions, which are also there as a part of CDS. That is something we would be going through. Okay. So let's just see what we did in the earlier session then. So in the earlier section, if I quickly jump to the in earlier session, we started with CDS views, the core data services. What we identified is, wow, nice. Again, yeah. Guys, give me 2 minutes. I'll just get that extended by this process. Oh, 1 second. Give me 2 minutes. Okay, so yes, so the thing is in process. So meanwhile, let's just utilize our time to also go through something more. Soon we should have the account back. Till the time, let's just utilize this time, okay, to understand more about CDS. So what we did is in the earlier session, we started learning with the CDS view, okay, that we can have multiple type of CDS. Okay, we can have multiple type of CDS called ABAP CDS and HANA CDS, right? You know why CDS view is very much famous is that it doesn't only give you a mechanism which a simple view can provide. Simple view plus additional functionality are being provided seamlessly by CDS views. So let's just say when I talk of a view would only allow you to get some sort of data, prepare multiple different kind of view like database view, maintenance views, and all those four kind of views that you can create. But when it comes to a CDS view, it gives you additional functionalities as well. So the very simple one and very useful one functionality, if we talk about, is I can say seamless integration with world outside. Okay. So ultimately, when I talk of a normal view, I won't be able to expose that view as an OData service. Okay. I won't be able to expose that view as an OData service. But when it comes to a CDS view, then that CDS view can be exposed. I mean, all of its data can be exposed to the world outside via an OData service. So when I talk of an OData service, what it is built upon? It is built on top of a REST API architecture. So when I say a REST API architecture, what it is all about? Definitely in couple of days, you would be receiving the recorded session for OData as well, where we would be learning how you can generate the OData service based on SEGW, gateway based OData service. While we are working with CDS, you would also learn how you can generate CDS based OData service. This is also something that you would be learning. Now, these two things, I can say these both of the things are generating OData service, and this OData service in itself is supporting the REST API architecture. So when I talk of a REST API, the name is representational state transfer. For example, when I say I want to have a service for a purchase order, okay, using which I should be able to present to the world outside a set of PO. On request of a user, I should also allow the user to create a PO if you want to update a PO, or if you want even to delete a PO, anything a user want, any sort of mechanism the user wants to perform on a purchase order should be possible. And that possibility is given to the world outside by a REST API architecture. So what is it all about? And first of all, why do we need that? Okay. So if I just open this paint, so it would be because many a time we see that rather than having words, if we can get a visual, then it would become more easy for us to correlate and remember it for longer amount of time. For example, consider this whole world, okay, this whole world of a normal technical developer, and where all the technological applications are residing. What is required for an application to work? For an application to work, what do we need is a, I can say, a set of data. We need set of data. So where this data is actually residing, it is residing in your SAP ERP system, or you can say S4 HANA, or you can say SAP ECC, anything you say. Ultimately, the data is residing at your database level. DB level, the data is residing, and what is the form of data that is there in the database? The form of data which is there, it is some sort of we can say raw data format, and which can understand your normal SQL. Plus, whenever you are in SAP ERP, it also understands your web. Where do we want to display this sort of data? If I want to prepare a small SAP GUI screen, if I want to prepare a small SAP GUI screen, then definitely SAP ABAP is sufficient for me. It would work. But whenever it comes to the latest technological devices, it means let's just say I want to use my set of data on an application which is being currently run on a browser based technology called Fiori or UI5 or any sort of handheld devices. Okay, so in case I want to display any sort of such data on I can say a browser based technology, or I can say the browser based technology you can consider as a Fiori or UI5 or any sort of mobile devices. Okay, then in this case, we need to pass this data from this system, from the backend system to this front end system in a language which this browser based technology understands. And now what this browser based technology actually understands? It understands either a JSON or XML. It doesn't understand your ABAP. Okay. A browser is very generic, irrespective of whether you are working with SAP, whether you are working with non-SAP, anywhere. A browser, you can consider it as a Chrome, you can consider it as an Internet Explorer, any sort of browser if you think of, it only understands JSON or XML. Now this system only provides me the data in this form. Then what do I need? I need a mediator in between. Okay, this mediator which is there in between over here is called gateway client. Purpose of this gateway client is to take the set of data from this backend system when I am receiving a, I can say request, whenever I am receiving a request from my UI to backend at that particular point in time, my gateway client would convert this JSON or XML form of request to a ABAP request. Okay. So that is a work of your gateway client. It converts this request which it is receiving in the form of JSON or XML into ABAP. So ABAP program can get executed in a correct way by understanding the request. Afterwards, this ABAP program would respond to the browser with the ABAP form of data. That ABAP form of data would again be converted to the JSON or XML by again this mediator called gateway client. So this purpose of this gateway client is to behave as a mediator and allow the communication between both of this system, so that on the request whatever response has been generated, okay, whatever response has been generated from the backend to UI can also be communicated easily. So let's just say there is an application on the UI which says, okay, give me all the purchase orders information there are which are there in the system. The system would receive the request over here. It would pass it on to gateway client. So, and this gateway client would ultimately send it again to the backend service, which would respond with the data. That data which is there in ABAP form would be converted to JSON or XML and again responded back to this browser. And this browser then would present the information in a proper tabular form or any sort of form which the user is actually asking for. Okay, so this request response based approach which is being followed understands four type of request. Okay, it understands four kind of request, or I can say it understands the post request, the put request, update request, and delete request. So when I say I am receiving a request, what all form I can expect? So I can say, let's just make this one more step ahead. So this post put update is not the one because its put is anyway update, and I can say read. So these four requests you would be receiving. So this post request which is there is the purpose of this is to create any info, or I can say create any data. This for new creation of, let's just say someone wants to create a new purchase order. This is what the system would be requesting, a post request. When the user is asking to update any existing information, for I can say for updating any data. The purpose of delete is for deleting any sort of data, and the read is to read the information. So when I said that the system would ultimately request for the data, it means the system would come to the backend system with a read call. So read call would get triggered, or in a term of a SAP OData service, this particular call is called a C. C is for create. Then this read call is again called a read in the OData. It's called read. This put call is called update in the OData. It is called U. And this delete call is also termed as a delete call in OData. And other than that, this read also has one more flavor where this read would only allow you to read only one record, for example. So whenever I am saying I want a purchase order and I am just sending a primary key purchase order number, then how many record I can expect as my output? Only one. So that is called a read call. If someone is saying get me the information where ship to party, or I can say the vendor code is ABC, then at that particular point in time what call is getting executed? It is called a query call. So query is also a read call, one plus records, or I can say with non primary key, and it is termed as a queue. So you might have heard many a times that OData support CRUD queue operation. So this CRUD queue operation is create, read, update, delete, and query. So this is the way with the help of which backend and frontend would be communicating to each other. Okay, and that is this all builds up a REST API. Okay, so the backend and frontend would be communicating to each other with the help of certain mediator. That mediator is called gateway client, and the strategy with the help of which they would be communicating to each other is called ultimately your REST API based communication, or I can say OData protocol. So this all builds up your OData protocol. So how this communication would ideally be looking alike? That is something that we would be seeing into system as soon as we start with the OData service. Let me just check back whether the system is up again. Okay, just give me a minute. Let me just share the screenshot on the group. Okay, now let's just learn few more things on the REST APIs. So when I say I am here with a REST API, okay, and I am expecting a let's just say a create call. Then when I say I want to create a purchase order, for example, what all things I need? I need the header information, I need the line item information, and all the relevant information whichever are there. But will I need the PO number? No, it is not required. So it means a REST API based call, whenever it is getting generated, it contains few information. First is called URI, which is the full URL, which identifies how the REST call would be looking like. The body part, which is termed as a payload. Okay. And here there would be one HTTP method. So when I say I'm having a create call, that URI, will it contain a key parameter? the URI, will it contain a key parameter? So ideally, whenever a create call is getting triggered, a key parameter is not required because we are expecting that whenever a create call is getting triggered, purchase order number would get generated. So key as an input is not required in input wherever. Whereas, but when I say I am here to create a purchase orders information, so here I can expect the user to pass the vendor number, somewhere to pass the purchasing organizations, and likewise every information. And afterwards, while having a create button, should I expect in the input all the information which user is entering in the system? I should expect all the things as my input, right? So that is called a payload. So I can say it is required. And which HTTP method will it trigger? It is triggering a post call. Okay. Then next, if we go with a update call. So when I say I am with an update call, if I want to, if I have, let's just say 50 odd purchase orders, okay, over here, or I can say somewhere over here, I do have 50 purchase order, and out of which I want to update a certain purchase order over here. So definitely, whichever purchase order I am asking the user to update, asking the system to update, I should get its identity that I want to perform a updation for the purchase order number one. So definitely the key parameter key is required whenever I am performing an update call. And of course, whatever information the user is updating, I also want the body parameter. And the HTTP method that we would be using for this is called put method. When it comes to a delete call, then definitely whichever record I am willing to delete, that particular record should come with a delete identity that I want to delete first purchase order, second purchase order, likewise. So here as well, the key is required. But do I need that the record I want to delete does have a vendor this, line item this, and everything? No. All the relation can be figured out from the database. So this particular body part is not required when it comes to a delete call. And this for this the HTTP method would be delete. Now when it comes to a read call, I am only trying to read the information of a single purchase order as mentioned earlier. So this R read information does require a key because I only want one record to be read. And but do I need a body parameter in the input? No, body parameter is not required in the input. I can expect it in the response. So the request should only send the key parameter. Response can have the body parameter as well. And that is why the body parameter in the input, or I can say payload, is not required again. And this is again a HTTP method read. When it comes to a query, okay. So here when I say give me all the information of a purchase order where vendor is ABC. So when I say vendor is equal to ABC, I can expect more than one purchase order also to be part of my output, right? And in that case, I cannot expect a key parameter because key parameter would only get you one record and an input in my output if I'm passing key in the input. So I can say not required in the input, but filter parameters can be there. So when I say filter parameters can be there, you can also say whether it's a vendor code is ABC, then only get me all the set of records. So that is called a filter parameter. So any sort of input on a non-key parameter is called a filter parameter. And over here, does the body require any sort do we are we required to pass any sort of input in the body, or I can say payload? No. And this is also HTTP method read. So for HTTP method read, you have two flavors. Whenever you are passing the key, then it would trigger a normal single record read. If you are not passing the key parameter at that particular point in time, you are trying to trigger a query operation. So this would be a very minor difference between a read and a query, which would become very important going forward. Okay, just allow me a moment. Okay, just allow me a moment. Okay, yep. So we do have the system now. Let's just proceed. I'll just try configuring the system because I got another system. Okay, so let's just try configuring the system over here. Okay, so now we do have the system. So let's just say I am inside my system and I would like to add this package that we had created earlier. I'll just say add a package. What it was, ZB underscore M22, I guess. Yeah, this was the package. I'll just add that. Now, what did we do in the last session was we created a CDS view, right? So the CDS view that we created, so here it is. So we started with creating a sample CDS. What we learned is a CDS view contains multiple information, one being the CDS view entity, another being the SE11 view dedicated to that. It would have certain parameters, the certain set of input parameters, the data source and everything, and it would end up in a CDS view which would be there into the system. In case I want to consume the same in a ABAP report as well, we tried consuming the same. So if you see over here, we consume that CDS view into our report where we are now querying from the CDS view. One thing to notice over here is that the consumption of a CDS view always intact, or I can say it should always intact the CDS view entity and not the SQL view. So I am writing this name and not this name which I have specified over here. It would give you the data and behave as if you are querying a normal SE11 view or you are querying a normal database table. If we go one more step ahead over here, so for example, you want to have your CDS view exposed as an OData service. What you can do for that? So I said earlier that CDS is quite versatile because it does a very important thing with it. What is that? It is a set of library of annotation. So here we would be using a library of namespace OData dot, I can say publish equal to true. So when I say OData dot publish equal to true, it would generate a OData service out of that. I'll just say activate over here. So till the time this view was only being used for getting the data at a report level. But let's just say if a Fiori application wants to use the CDS view, then it was not possible because it was not visible outside. Now, if you put a cursor over here, you would find that the service has been generated. What is the name of the service? Name of the service says it is the name of the service generated via CDS view is the name of the CDS view underscore the CDS, right? So this is very important that the name of CDS OData service generated out of this CDS view would be name of the OData service would be the name of CDS view underscore CDS. If I want to maintain this, I can go in slash and IWFND maint underscore service, which would allow me to maintain the service into the system. I can say add service over here. As I am on the same system, I can just say local. I'll just pass the name of the OData service. Click over here. You can pass the package if you have. So I can say, okay, I do have M22. I'll just say enter. If I try filtering the OData service over here, you would get that. And if you see, it just say that status of the OData service you generated is now active. If I just say execute now, you would get the information of a OData service. To get any information, all you have to write is a $metadata. And if you see the status code is 200, it means it's a success. If you just scroll down a bit, you would get that your OData service that got generated over here, okay, it is in version 2.0. It has a EBLN as a primary key, and over here it has this sort of 4 parameters that you have mentioned: purchasing document, the company code, document type, and category. Now, if I want to get any sort of information, I have to depend on an entity. So here, what is the name of entity? It's again the name of the CDS view. So this would be there by default. If you want to give more meaningful name to the entity, you can use one more annotation. What you can do is you can say @OData dot entity set name. Over here, you can say I want to information of purchase order. So I can say, okay, it is nothing but my PO data set. If I just say activate over here, if I again go back to the OData service, if I just say enter, so metadata would be reloaded. If I just say entity set, now you would find the name of the PO data set. So if I just click over here, and if you see, if I just try executing this application just to compare the data, it's not ideally required, but I want to compare the data. That's why I'm doing this. So here I am get a whole list of data. Here, if I want the same sort of data, what I'll do is I'll just say I want to perform a query operation. So here, will I pass a key parameter? No, I won't. But the HTTP method I would be using over here would again be a get call. Okay, I can say a get call. Get is a read. And here, if I just go back and if I just say enter, you would get whole bunch of data being presented in a form of an OData. This is a default XML format that you are getting. If you want to convert this into some other format, you can say question mark dollar format equal to JSON, and you would get it for data in a form of a JSON. And we have not wrote any line of code other than this one. So we have just specified that I am willing to have the view exposed as an OData service and name of OData entity set name. That is all we specified, nothing else. Okay, and this everything is still working. For example, you only want a purchase order where EBLN equal to this. So this is the primary key because we specified it as a key over here. What you would need now, if you want to read only this record, all you have to do is you can just say in a round bracket EBLN equal to in a single inverted comma, say enter, and you would only get that record. And what kind of call I just triggered? It is called a query call. Sorry, it is called a read call. Why read call? Because it is using key parameter. If I instead want to go with a query parameter, what I can do is I can just go back and I just say I want a you can say filter. So let's just say I want to go with question mark dollar filter equal to, here I'll just pass the name of field. For example, I want all the record where my BSART equal to NB. Okay, that's it. And let's just say I want to go with XML data this time. You can go with any type of data. So here, if you see, as I remove question mark dollar format, I'm getting XML data and I pass filter as a NB. So I'm getting that information. If I just say I want data for NC, for example, and if I don't have, I won't be getting any records. So without writing any line of code, you would be able to perform the filtering. Yes, someone wants to say something. Yeah, Pallavi.
Sumit, when you created this entity name like PO data set, before that we were not getting the values in any format, like output we are not
We
getting.
definitely you would get.
Uh-huh.
Definitely you would get. If I just remove this information, if I just activate, by default, the name of entity would be the name of your view.
Okay.
Okay.
Only we are changing the name.
We are changing the name because whenever you are going with a huge amount of OData service, at that
Mm-hmm.
particular point in time, there would be a huge list of the entities that would be there over here in the list. And in that particular case, it would become very difficult for you to identify just by looking at the name of the view. So that's why SAP suggests go with the name of entity set. Entity, it is denoting to one business process. So here, if you see, I just
Mm-hmm.
pass this, I'm not getting any data. Instead, if I just say NB, I would start getting the data I was getting earlier, right?
Mm-hmm. So
So
this because since we are using this CDS view in many places, so to differentiate, we are use the entity set.
yeah, that is one thing. And secondly, when I say a OData service is built out of a EDM model, entity data model. So it is a whole data model built on a top of entity. So when I say I am building a OData service for purchase order processing, I can have purchase order header, purchase order line item, company code header, the vendor master, everything. And
Mm-hmm.
if I'm just start giving the name based on the view, then it would be fully technical. So when I say a fully technical thing, that would be very obvious for a backend person to understand. But how
Mm-hmm.
this OData service would be consumed? It would be a UI developer who would be using that. Now you might also have observed that UI developer would be having a bit less technical terms knowledge than that of the backend, because they are mainly working on the UI terminology. Okay,
Okay.
so business knowledge a UI person would be having very limited. So that's why we always plan to go with certain non-technical terms.
Okay. Actually, I'm not ever like O data theory and
Yeah, I
UI.
know.
Like
So
in one line, can you explain like how it is? O data means like we can check in the same SAP screen like how you showed
So,
here.
so if you see, this is what whole OData is working all around. So,
Uh-huh.
as of course we are going through the CDS view, we would also be learning OData, and we would also be generating a simple Fiori application. Okay, that simple
Uh-huh.
Fiori application would just guide you how you can generate a Fiori UFI application using a CDS. Though I am a backend developer, you are a backend developer, still we would be generating the UI application
Uh-huh.
without doing any UI coding. At that particular point in time, it would be very obvious. But currently, if you see, why do we need that? Because till the time all the new technologies were growing, but SAP was always rotating around this SAP GUI. So if I look at the screen, it was not that modern.
Okay.
Afterwards, people start moving to the browser-based technology. Now that browser-based technology needs some sort of translation because it doesn't understand the ABAP, and that is why this whole architecture came into picture,
Uh-huh.
using which the backend and front end can communicate. Now, for each of the service, I can't say, okay, get me the data of purchase order. So that would be an action based. When I'm clicking on this button, I want this data. So that would become an action based, a SOAP
Uh-huh.
API. So for all the OData service, I can have different architecture. So SAP plan to go with very generic design. That generic
Uh-huh.
design is being provided by a REST API, which always rotate around a four basic, we can say,
Uh-huh.
pillars. The
Uh-huh.
CRUD queue operations, and those CRUD queue
Yeah.
operations are something we would always be performing.
Yeah, this I got it. But what you showed now, the query in the SAP screen or like activating, can you go
Mm-hmm.
to the not this one, the
Yeah.
other one.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how we see the this is how we use Fury, like Fury and all we will use in the Chrome, right? This is we check in the
So,
SAP.
so ultimately, whenever I am saying, we earlier we used to work as a full stack developer. So of course, you also have quite a number of years of experience. I am also quite a long time since I'm in SAP. So I and you also used to work as a full stack developer. Why? Because I was the one who was designing application server logic. I was the one who was designing my module full screens. So ultimately,
Mm,
UI and backend, we were designing alone. Now the design has been segregated because the development of this UI screen required a UI logic. So what you would be working as a backend developer core whenever you are supporting a Fiori application. For a backend developer, what we would need is I am designing CDS view. Now, before
mm,
handing it over to the front end
mm,
developer, what I need to
mm.
perform some sort of unit testing.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
unit
Okay.
testing is
Mhm.
being done on a gateway client. So this is a gateway
Okay.
client, and
Mm-hmm.
here we
Okay.
can check if a post call, if a create button is getting triggered, what sort of
Mm.
backend call I can expect, so that you can simulate over here,
Okay.
check whether it's
Mm-hmm.
working, and then you can hand it over.
Okay.
But
Okay. So this is for testing purpose. So the same result they will get in their browser.
in the browser, exactly, because of course I can't ask my end user to, okay, execute the query like this, because he would just fed up of
Mm.
me and stop using my applications. Okay,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
so
I
this is a
got it.
unit testing client, gateway client.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Fine. So the same. So now what you are showing is for. I mean, what all data we are getting. That approach is called OData approach, right? Like we
Yeah,
use the data.
OData approach. So if you just simulate the thing, what it would look like is that you
Mm.
are over here, and here if you see, there would be a Fiori application. Fiori application, you let's just start with a very basic. So you would can visualize
Mm-hmm.
there would be a table.
Mm-hmm.
There would be a table. In this table, you would be saying, okay, I am getting giving a filter to my user. He can filter on the document type, and here I am binding all the purchase orders. So those
Mm-hmm.
all the purchase order that you would be binding would be nothing but these properties, the EBL and BUKRS, that would you would bind over there. Okay. Once you have bind it over there, if a user type in the document type filter NB, the user can expect, okay, only give me the information where NB is there. So
Mm-hmm.
this filtering would apply. So it means it would trigger a backend call which would look exactly like the one we simulated over here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it would only give the relevant data. And afterwards, if someone says that I want to go one more step forward, and here you are only displaying me 4 set of information, I want additional. So I'll just say, okay, go in the detail page. So this detail page would be opened upon a click of an arrow, and what it would trigger? It would trigger a read call. It
Mm-hmm.
would trigger a read call, and this read call would inject a key parameter. So for example, purchase order has number 1, so it would pass the PO data set along with that 1. So here in this detail page, it would only show the information relevant to that purchase order only. Okay. So this is how the whole UI would be working. Internally, it would be calling the O data calls that we are generating over here.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
So
So
Fiori, I mean, this is for UI, this thing
so the
output.
UI design in
Mm-hmm.
SAP is being termed very generically as SAP Fiori.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there are multiple kind of applications, standard Fiori element, custom UI applications, and everything. But whole those, it is all built up on a top of a Fiori. Fiori is a normal term that they use for that.
So, but when in our project, like we have a different system for SAP HANA and a different, I mean, login for Fiori. So, whatever we develop in ECC, I mean, sorry, HANA, I mean, in SAP HANA, so that will reflect in SAP Fiori, right? But
Yeah.
the way we,
So
but way we test it there will be different.
no. So the thing is, or whatever you develop in SAP S4 HANA and you are
Mm,
exposing as an OData service, what it would
mm,
do is it would just build a service. Now,
mm.
it depends on your project's architecture that where that particular service your project is willing to consume. So what it would do is if you see, if you are just seeing the, okay, password was 1 second. So what you are currently seeing is just a very shallow view. So if I just say, here you just got that I am generating a OData service. This would be used in a Fiori. That is something you are visualizing. But if I want to use something outside of my SAP system, how I can communicate? Using a service manager called SICF. So whenever I am registering a service, ideally that service would be part of my, oops, it should be underscore CDS, that is the name. So here if you see, it is generating a service. So this service which is there, which would be visible to the world outside. Now, whether you are using it in a SAP or non-SAP, I mean a Fiori or non-Fiori, any sort of normal application which is able to call a remote API, that would also be able to consume these services. So even though your project is not working on a Fiori based applications, or we can say if you are, the way you are navigating to a Fiori application is different, still all you would be generating as a backend developer would be OData service. It would have one endpoint, and that endpoint would ultimately help you call that particular service easily. And what that endpoint would be looking like, I can say. So it is all we are trying to achieve over here is we are trying to expose the data out of our SAP system so anyone can consume that. So this call
Okay.
browser is there, which would give you whole kind of a link. This link is something that would ultimately any sort of UI application can consume. Not only Fiori, but non-Fiori as well. Okay.
Mhm. That's like I didn't understand like how Fiori, like what is Fiori in that
We
thing.
of course, we are not going with the UI sessions definitely dedicatedly, but I would still
Mhm.
show some sort
Mhm.
of glimpse of how the
Yeah,
consumption
just
of the service
glance.
would be looking alike. Yeah.
Yeah, just want to know how from SAP UI will use, how Fiori will use. That's all.
Yeah, I
Simple.
understood your point very quickly. I understand your point, but we would I would try to show as much as I can because
Okay.
currently all the projects are being worked like are currently running on Fiori. So it's a kind of a very basic thing that everyone would be expecting. But the thing
Mm-hmm.
is, if for you to correlate, I pretty much understand that if you have a screen of Fiori that you can just see, then it would become easy for you to correlate as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I understand. So yeah, definitely we would be planning some sort of thing, mostly not in this session, but in the upcoming, I would try to prepare some screen via this CDS view. So you would also feel comfortable, okay, how I can use this and generate a UI as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Now, let's just think from a normal database developer perspective. For example, I am generating a CDS view. This is a very simple CDS view I generated. Now, here I want that this particular view does not take any sort of input filters, input parameters. If I want to give any sort of input parameters, so that my view only gives the information after that parameter is executed, then I have to go with a parameterized view generation. What can I do for that? I can just go again in the same flow I was going. Here I can say data definition, and here I can say, for example, ZV22, I can say parameterized view. Here you can say define view with parameters. Once you say finish, it would generate a view for you. Here, this is my normal CDS view entity. Now you would be knowing this. When I say a SQL view I want to generate, I can directly give the name to SQL view over here. So this would generate my SQL view. I can say I want to get the data of EKKO. E would be my EBLN, UKRS, BSART, BSTYP, ER name, and AE date, for example. And here, if I want to give one more input called company code, for example, so I can say the name of the parameter you can define. I can say I underscore BUKRS. Here, in the parameter type, you can give the data type of the parameter. It can be any data element. So for example, BUKRS data element is BUKRS. So I can give that. If you want to give some sort of generic one, for example, ABAP dot character, date, decimal, anything you want to give, you can also give that. But I know the company code's data type is BUKRS, so I'll just pass that. Now, once you have the parameter, but if you are not using that anymore, okay, then of course you would be getting a warning. But if I want to use this parameter as a filter in my view, what I can do? I can just say where my BUKRS is equal to. Here I can say dollar parameters, and here you would be getting the list of parameters that is there in the input. And I can say dollar parameters dot IBUKRS. When I say activate this, and the moment I say execute, it would prompt you for the parameters. So parameters in the CDS view are by default mandatory. You have to pass those. So for example, I want the information of LF01 company code. So I can say LF01 enter. So you would only get the purchase order which are from LF01. Okay. If you want to, let's just say, alter the parameter and say give me all the information from 1710, and you just say enter, you would get the information for 1710. So the parameters are nothing but the input to the particular CDS view, which would allow the view to filter the data before passing it on back to the application server. So if I was over here in the Eclipse, and if I want to use the parameterized view instead, so all I can say is, let's just say comment this out, and here I can say from the name of the view, if you just say control space shift enter, here you would get the parameters name. And as I am passing it, the filter parameter in the parameters, I don't want the where clause as well. So I'll just say, okay, forget about the where clause. The pbucrs which was there, I'll just pass it in the input. But as it is a variable, I'll just pass @pbucrs. So I say activate. I would be able to call the parameterized view. So this is how we call the normal view. It does not need anything. But a parameterized view always requires the parameters. When I say execute, Here you would say, for example, again LF01. If you just say execute, you would only get the relevant record. But if you say 1710, let's just say 1710, you would get all the relevant purchase orders. Okay. So earlier we used to pass the filters in where clause. What might be happening over here? Here the system might be fetching records from the view, and that view's record would be filtered out again based on the company code, or I can say the where conditions explicitly before presenting it to the application server. Here the full execution is being done on a full database layer, and you can expect everything to get executed along with filter, and then only the data would be presented to my end user. Okay, so that is the meaning of a parameterized view. You can have the parameters, you can have n number of parameters in the input, and you can have those n number of parameters being used wherever you want. There are two ways with the help of which I can have the parameters, or I can say I can use the parameters. One way is you can specify dollar parameters. Another way is you can say where BUKRS equal to, you can say colon I underscore BUKRS. When I say colon, then of course the system would again identify that this is my colon. Okay, and this colon, it means it's not a database column, it is a explicit variable that you are trying to use. When I say activate, again it would behave the same way, just we are altering the way we are referring to the parameter. When I say execute, here it would again ask you for the parameter, you would pass the parameter, and the output would be same as we were getting it earlier. So there is no change in the output behavior. The only change is the way we are referring to the parameter. It's up to you how you would like to write the code. If you want dollar parameter, you can go with that. If you want another way, you can also go with that. That is also very much practical. Okay. Now, let's just move one more step forward. Okay. And moving one more step forward over here, what we are trying to achieve over here is certain thing which are coming from the session. Okay, so let's just say I want to give few more columns over here as a part of this views output, which is called a session variables. I can say session variables. So when I say session variables, what is it? In ABAP, we also have session variables. Let's just say I want to get the system language, I can say sci-lang-u. If I want to get some system username, I can say sci-u-name, and likewise. Same way in CDS view as well, we have session variables. How I can have those? You can say dollar session dot, you can say you can get 4 session variable in CDS view. A client, which would give you the current client, system date would give you the current system date, language would give you the system language, and the user would give you the current user ID. So when I say a client over here, you can give the alias saying, okay, it's a client system date, as I can say system date, I can say system language, and I can say system user. So these are the session variables which are available in a CDS view, which would help you getting the session information, and you can present it to the output user. So session variables can be used at multiple places. One place is, as I mentioned, you can have those as an output parameter. Like I do have the current client is 800, date is 20th of March. It's English language and it says for about 16, which is using this system right now. If you want to go one more step ahead, and if you want to use this variable in a filter as well, saying give me only the purchase order where the user okay, or the creator of the purchase order is my current user, then you can mention again like this. So it would filter down the record saying the ER name, the creator of the purchase order is the current user. So if you also want to go with that, then you can also use the session variables in filter. So session variables can be used for now at two places, one as a part of output column and one as a part of your input filter parameters. So as I don't have any sort of purchase orders created from my user ID, it's not displaying, but you can use that as you want. Okay. So these
Sumit,
all about session variables. Yes,
this as we will use as an alias name, right?
exactly. It is nothing but an SQL, right?
But this as like when we use in ABAP, in the column name when we see the output, we can't see that names. I mean column name it will be blank, but here we can see the same name in the output.
No, so of course, if you see, it's not that difference because if you see,
Hmm.
okay, let me just show you something. So here, the information which you are seeing over here is a technical name.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
if I just go over here, activate this, if I just execute, what you are getting over here, EBLN, BUKRS, BSTYP, everything, right? Now,
That's what I am seeing.
what would be presented to the user? Something which would be presented to the user would be something that would come from my data element.
Correct.
Okay, and that would only be, so if I see over here for the OData service that we expose, I
Mm-hmm.
can say slash dollar meta. Sorry, what you are getting over here is even though it is EBLN, it is saying the name is EBLN, but what is the label? Label is purchasing document. Now, where this purchasing document is actually coming from? It is coming
Data.
from your data. Exactly, it is coming from your data element. Now, when I talk of this particular CDS view, if I
Mm-hmm.
try exposing this as an OData service, so you can also have parameterized CDS view also exposed as an OData service. That is also very much simple.
No,
Let me
what I'm
just also.
asking, this system underscore client, this name
Yeah, I
only is.
understood. Okay,
Ah.
what I mean to say is, let's just say how this view would be used. Let's just say very first thing. So this view would be used. Okay, okay. Let me just show you somewhere where you are already aware of. So for example,
Mm,
this particular CDS view I am talking of, and
mm,
let's just say I don't want this column because I want to display some sort of data. So I'll just remove this so I can get some data in my output.
mm,
I'll just activate this. So here I have all the set of data. If I just go back to my program, it is consuming the same view.
mm,
It is being displayed in the form of an AL view.
mm.
The moment I say execute 1710, parameterized view, why it is not calling this particular set of columns?
Yeah, that's what. Now we can see this column names, but
Yeah, now you can see the column names. What I want to just show you over here is if I just go back, try activating this program again. Let's just say I
mm,
just want to. It is loading the old copy of my program, unfortunately. I want the new
mm,
one. Just see. So ultimately, it is a date. When I say Eclipse, this Eclipse based output is something that won't be visible to the user. Okay, it is just showing the technical name. When you
mm,
are displaying it to the user, you won't display the technical name. Instead, you would be showing the labels, and that labels are also not available with these columns. and that's why you won't be able to see that, unfortunately. It is just this view which would show, because it's, you see, what is this? This is raw data. You
Okay.
can't present raw data to the user, right?
So here we can see that column name, but in the normal
In
app,
the
right?
actual, yeah, in the
Yeah.
normal ABAP, when you would be presenting it to the user, you won't be able to see that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Now, let's just say I want to go one more step forward. Before that, anyone has any question? Shiva, all clear?
No.
Okay, perfect. So no means nothing clear or all clear?
Yeah, whatever you explained, it is clear
Okay.
now.
Okay, perfect. Now, let's just say I want to go one more step forward with the few more things. Okay. So here we are mainly focusing on the key definition, for example. Over here and say I want to focus on the key parameter. This is something important, and would help you as well. So I'll just generate one more CDS view over here, data definition, CDS view for key definition. So let's just start with a normal view, a very plain view. Now, one thing is for sure, let's just say I have generated a normal CDS view, just for your knowledge. I have generated a normal CDS view like this. Going forward, sometime in future, someone is saying, okay, generate me this view, but I want a parameterized view this time. And if you want to extend this view as parameter, all you have to do is you have to just write with parameters over here, and you can have it also over here. You do not need to generate new view each and every time. That template that we are having while generating a CDS view is just to ease our life whenever we are generating a fresh CDS view. In case you have a simple view that you generated and now you want to add the associations, joins, and few more things, then you can have the simple view extended to that. All you have to know is what are the keywords that you would need for that. Okay, that's the only thing. Now, let's just talk of the key definition. So I'll just say I'm over here. I just go over here. Let's just say EKKO. Okay. Now I am getting some sort of information. For example, key EBLN, UKRS, BSART, BSTYP, ER name. I have this set of information available with me, and this should be my SQL view. So as both are same, I'm getting an error. Here our emphasis is mainly on this annotation, which says preserve key equal to true. What we are saying is that we are telling to the system preserve the key we are specifying. So I hope you know what we mean over here is that whenever I'm generating a CDS view, what it would generate internally, an SQL view. If I just copy the name from here, and if I just open the SA11, try viewing this view over here. Okay, at that particular point in time, all the views are by default client dependent. So this client is something that is gonna come. That is something that we can ignore. What is more important is the key parameter over here is EBELN. Why? Because we specified EBLN as a key. If I also specify BUKR as a key, and if I just say activate, if I just go back and just say view this particular view, how it is built, here you would get EBLN and BUKRS both are marked as a key. Very much simple, plain, straightforward. Here I do have a preserve key equal to true. What does this mean is we are saying to the system whatever key parameter we are specifying over here, you should preserve those and only mark those as a key. If I just say false and just say save and activate this, if you just go back, just open this, Here you would get the only key that you are getting over here is EBELN. We have provided two keys over here, but the system is getting only one. From where it is getting that? It is referring to the source table that we specified. What is source table over here? It is EKKO. And EKKO table does have only one key parameter, and that is EBELN. So when you are saying preserve key equal to true, it means preserve key equal to true, it means preserve the key we are specifying. If you are saying this as a false, then you are saying to the system auto determine keys based on the source structures. What are the source structures over here? It is EKKO. So based on the EKKO, it is determining the key of that particular view. Okay, that is the meaning of a preserve key equal to true or false. Seems very straightforward till now. If I just say activate this, nothing has changed. If I just say view the data, it would be very simple for me. It would show all the data to me. Very fine, plain, straightforward. Let's just move one more step forward over here and say I want to get the data from multiple tables. So here I was having define view. So I'm defining a view as select from EKKO, but here I want data from two tables, EKKO and EKPO, purchase order header and purchase order line item. I just say select from EKKO as EH. I am just giving the table alias. I am specifying inner join EKPO as EP. On I can say EH dot I can say EBLN equal to EP dot EBLN. Now, the moment you start specifying the joins, the columns which are there in both the column would create some sort of ambiguity because they are not unique. They are present in both the tables. So let's just specify EH dot over here. So these all the columns are coming from my header table. If you want to provide the line item, I can say EP dot EB EP dot metna, EP dot MEINS, TXZ01, EP dot MENGE. Yes. So you would have all these fields. Now let's just say I want to correct this view because what this view is currently presenting is the information of EKKO and EKPO. So what would be the unique combination over here? It would be the EBLN and EBLP. So I can say EBLN is my key and also EBLP is also my key. But if you see, if I put a cursor, key must be contiguous and start at the very first position. It means whenever you are specifying the key parameter, it should only occur at the very beginning of the view. So I might feel, okay, SAP start defining certain new rules that, okay, the key should only be at the beginning of the table or view. But that's not the case. It is not that SAP starts specifying these rules nowadays. It was there earlier as well. Okay, for example, let me just close this. For example, if I just go in my screen SAP GUI, which I was using earlier, and if I just say ZB M22 tab 01, and if I start creating a database table, I can say sample. Here, if I just say that mandate EBLN PUKRS EBLP. If you just say save a local object, if you just do this syntax check, it says key is already defined, field EBLP cannot be a key. Okay, why? Because in normal SAP as well, whenever you are specifying a key parameter, be it a table or view or anything, okay, the key should always occur at the very beginning. So it is not that something SAP just started specifying these days. it was there from very beginning. Earlier, we were doing the, we can say, coding at the wizard level, and here now if you see, there is no syntax check errors. Earlier, SAP was having the key definition in a wizard based manner. Now we have it in code based. But the fact is, at that particular point in time as well, the key was only specified. There was also the same rule, the key should only occur at the very beginning. So let's just say I want to promote this and I want the key to be specified at the very beginning. So I did that and I am safe over here. Let me just mark this as a true. If I just say activate this, while activating, all you can find over here is I have EBLN and EBLP as my key. If I just try executing this, you have n number of records being presented in your output. Okay. Now, if I just go one more step back, if I try opening the view, display, here you have the set of records coming from EBLN and EBLP. Both the tables are joined over here, and view file says EBLN and EBLP are key. Okay. Now, if you see, if I just try viewing some sort of information, which is, for example, let's just say this purchase order I want to be focused on. I can say EH EBLN equal to okay. So when I say activate this, and if I just say execute, I am getting how many records over here? Around 10 records. Right. Now, if I just alter the key parameter over here. Okay, so when I alter the key parameter, rather than making EBLN and EBLP as a key, if I just remove the EBLP from key parameter over here, at that particular point in time, upon activation, I just say execute, you would say, I am still getting all those 10 records. If I open the view instead, you would get that I do have only one key parameter, EBLN specified. Okay. So the focus over here is you have even though you have specified a key parameter which is just this EBLN, or I can say you have specified the key wrongly on your SQL level view output, you cannot see any sort of impact. You are still getting the same amount of record you are getting earlier. But it does not mean that you can specify the key wrongly. It can have some adverse effect. So one thing is, if you are not sure what should be the key combination, what you can do is you can try specifying this as a false. Say activate this. Go back, open this, and you would get right set of key combination. Wow. So here it is identifying each of this as a key, because you said, okay, you have the liberty, give me the false and give me all the key parameters you feel are unique. So it just gave you this parameters key. That should not be the case. Ideally, it should be the source parameter on which the system should actually depend. So it means if you are going with a view definition, always specify ABAP catalog preserve key equal to true. Very first and foremost thing you should always follow. Second thing, always depend on your set of source tables that what is the key specified over there. EKKO has a EBLN as a key, EKPO has EBLP as a key. So ideally your key combination should be the combination of both. So you should always specify EBLN and EBLP as a key. Now let's just think of a drawback. Okay, what would happen if I specify the key wrongly? So for example, I am getting 10 records over here. If I do have two keys, even though I remove one key from here, I am still receiving 10 records because that's what we see a minute back. I just close all of this. If I try re-executing this, I am still getting this 10 records. So it seems I am fine. I don't have any issue. Now just visualize this from a UI application perspective. That I have this data available with me, which are these 10 records. These 10 records, which I am presenting it in the form of this particular table. So I am having all this purchase order and EBLN and EBLP being presented over here. I want to see this more into detail. So what would I specify? I would specify the key parameter over here. So when I say I am specifying key parameter, in this case where I am in the wrong world, where I have just specified one parameter as a key, my system would get confused, right? That if I pass 191, I am getting 10 records. I am not getting one record. So what should I present in my output? So it would result into an error. Okay, if I want to see how the error would be looking alike, let's just go one more step forward and just expose this service as a expose this view as a OData service. I can say OData dot entity set name. I can say your data key definition set. I'll just activate this and let's just try registering this view as an OData service over here. If I try filtering this, of course, initially I won't find, I have to register that. The moment I say register, if I just go back, you would see the service is now registered. Okay, let me just execute this. Upon execution, you would find the name of entity sets over here, which says PO data KD set. If I say enter, I am getting all the records. Now I want to simulate a scenario that when someone is clicking on so it means for same purchase order, I have multiple lines. So if someone is clicking on this, I want to display the detail of this. But how the backend call would look alike? Backend call would be the name of the entity set plus the primary key. What is the primary key over here? It is 191. So let me just say I want to go with this PO data along with the primary key. The moment I say enter, you would get duplicate resource. Okay. So even though you would see that your OData service was working on a query operation, on a read call, it would start failing. Reason is you specified the key combination wrongly. Okay, your key combination should be very unique and should be accurate one. So if I just say I have a wrong key combination specified, so if I try performing a read operation, it would fail. If I just try correcting this particular key combination, saying EBLN and EBLP both are my key parameter, the moment I say activate, the OData service would be regenerated automatically. I do not need to re-register that. So just keep that in mind. I only have to register my OData service very first time. Going forward, that particular OData service would be adjusted automatically. If I just go over here again and try getting the same set of information I am getting, let me just reload the metadata, $meta data. And if I just say enter, now you would find that I do have EBLN and EBLP both as a key. So if I have the entity set again, here you would get that now my PO datasets call is regenerated and it asks me that I should pass EBLN along with the EBLP as a key combination. So now if I want to open the object page, I should pass 1 and 10 both of them so I can get the unique information. So the moment I pass this information in my input and say enter, here I would get the unique information on my detail page. So on this detail page, you would be able to display the information. The read call would be success. Okay. So if you are just testing the view in an Eclipse, you might find that, okay, it is working fine, even though I don't specify the correct key combination. But your end user, okay, would not be using your Eclipse for checking the data. He don't know Eclipse and he actually is not interested in knowing what is Eclipse, where you are developing. More he is interested in is where is his application and is it working perfectly or not. If that application is not working perfectly just because you specified the key combination wrongly, then of course there is some trouble, or I can say we would be in trouble. Okay, so the key combination, the wherever you are specified, should be the exact and accurate one. Okay, and for that you have to depend on the base tables, and that base table would give you what is the right set of key combination. So whatever here it is one key parameter, EKKO is containing one key parameter, EKPO is containing two key parameters. So the combination of both would build the final key parameter for you. Okay, does this make sense? Is it clear?
Yes.
Perfect. Now we went with a joins. So joins are something that you all are anyway very clear about, I hope, right? So ultimately, when I say I am working with a joins, I am working with a joins, for example. So I can have multiple type of join, a inner join and a left outer join. I have seen many interviews in which just the interviewer asks very first thing, okay, do you know what are joins? Definitely everyone would say, yes, I know. He would just say, okay, what is the difference between an inner and left outer join? The moment you answer this question wrongly, okay, your interview would close then and then, because this is very basic thing. Even though you are in SAP, even though you are in college, the joins definition is very basic to a computer student. Okay, so when I say inner join, so for example, I do have one table which says, okay, one is my key parameter. I can say EBLN. Here I do have 1, 2, 3, and here I can consider this as my EKKO table, for example, and I can consider EKPO table, which is having EBLN and EBLP, is having again a 1, 1. Here it is I having 10 and 20 number of records. Here it is having 2 and 10 number of record, and here it does not have 3, but it has a 4, which is again having, let's just say, 10 number of record. The moment I say inner join, it would focus on my on condition. So the on condition over here is eh.ebln and ep.ebln. So it says if the records are there in both the tables, so 1 and 2 has records in this table, but does 3 has any sort of record in this table? No. So it would only fetch the records I have highlighted. So on condition would determine what would be the joining parameter. Here it is EBLN, and inner join would only get the matching records. But the moment I say left outer join, it would fetch all the records. So here in the select from we specified EKKO on the left hand side, EKPO on the right hand side. So the moment I say left outer join, it would get all the records from left hand side table and only matching record from right hand side table. So when I say I am executing, the left outer join on this, EKKO is on left, EKPO is on right, it would get all these three records along with only these two records, because the right hand side 4 does not have any match on the left hand side table. Even though 3 does not have any match on the right hand side table, it would be part of that, because here left is getting priority because it is a left outer join. If it is a right outer join, then right hand side table would get priority. All the records of right hand side table would be fetched, and only the matching record of left hand side would be fetched. Okay, this is the meaning of a left outer join and right outer join. So what would happen if I just say if I don't have any sort of such where condition? For example, if I just try executing this, here I am getting all the records. If I the moment I say short by EBLP, I am getting minimum 0001. It means I am getting only the purchase order where there is at least one line item. The moment I say that replace this particular join with a left outer join, because that is inner and left outer join are the most frequently used. Right outer join is very rarely used join. The moment I say left outer join, if I just try executing this again, and if I short this, now here you would also get certain lines where the line item is not there. So what is the fields coming from line item? EBLP, which is set to 0, which is default value. The material number, MEINS, MENG, short text, everything is blank. It means the system only get the header record even though there are no line item specified with that. Okay, so even though is 45005 does not have any line items, system got the header record for us. So that is the meaning of a left outer join. This is just to introduce the joins. I have specified this. Joins and association we would be going more into detail in the upcoming session, because associations is also one kind of join. So to understand what is the difference, we would again be going with the joins for at that particular point in time. Okay. Now, what we would be now focusing on is certain built-in function, certain grouping functions, certain unions and everything. Okay. So it's 12:06. Before that, let's just have a quick 5 minutes break. Let's just gather back at 12:11 or 12:12, and we will be continuing with the rest of the topic then. Okay. So you see you all in next 5 to 6 minutes.
Yeah, okay. Sumit, and explain how to take performance of series views like that.
In the upcoming session, that would be part of. But yeah, we
Yeah,
will be going through that for sure.
okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Yes, so yes, are we all here?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, perfect. Okay, just a moment. Now, next thing we are going to focus over here is certain functions. Okay, those would be very important going forward. So let's just say I'm generating a new CDS view here. I can say grouping function. So we are mainly focusing on the grouping functions over here. I'll just say next, and we would be generating a simple view over here. Okay. So first of all, what is grouping function? So when we think of any sort of real world application, okay, many a time we get a requirement that give me all the set of purchase orders, or I can say give me all the set of data and perform some sort of operation on that. So for example, I do have a set of purchase orders, and in one purchase order I can expect more than one lines. Now the user is requesting that give me the purchase orders and get me some analytical information, that what is the maximum net price I am providing for a purchase order on which particular dedicated line, and what is that maximum price, what is the minimum price I am giving, what is the average price of them, what is the summation, how many lines are there in a purchase order. Okay, this all the sort of information, the maximum, minimum, average, summation, counts, everything that we want to get over here are something that we can achieve using certain grouping function. Okay, so if I just say I am generating a view over here for the scenario which I just mentioned, let's just say I am focusing on the purchase order line called EKPO, for example. In the EKPO, let's just say I want to get the grouping information based on a purchase order. So purchase order would be the one based on what I want to get some sort of information. So I can say EBLN would be my key. I can expect one line per purchase order, which would give me some analytical set of information. For example, I want the maximum of net price I do have, and that is something I can name as, let's just say, maximum of net price. If someone says give me the average of all the net price that you are having as a part of one purchase order, so I can say net price of average. And
Sumit,
likewise we can, yeah, please.
sorry, actually I could not see your screen. Can you share it again?
Okay, sure. Is
I
it
can
visible now? Yeah, no
I
worries,
can
I can
see.
Yeah,
reshare.
yeah. Now I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Maybe there might be sometime a network issue, so that could occur.
Ah,
Okay.
yeah, correct. Actually, there's some network issue.
Yeah, fine for me. Okay. So let's just say I am focusing on the grouping function. So what we want over here is we want some analytical sort of output. When we use grouping function, whenever we are looking for, or I can say the user is asking for some sort of analytical output, that for a purchase order where there can be more than one line item, give me the maximum net price on any of those individual line items which are there. Give me the average net price, give me the, let's just say, total net price. These all the things that we are looking for can be achieved using grouping function. So grouping function ideally is termed as a maximum, average, minimum, sum, let's just say count, everything. What it intake is a numeric input. So be it a quantity, currency, any sort of such fields are there that would go as a part of this function. So this function individually are considered as a aggregation functions. Okay. Whenever we are working with aggregation functions, what we have to pass is a such numerical column. So for example, I'm getting maximum, average, sum, let's just say minimum of net price I want to give, and I can say minimum of net price. I want to get how many total lines are there for a purchase order. I can say count star, and here I can say whenever I am grouping the data, the base rule over here is that all the columns in the selection field, all the column whichever are used in the selection field or in a sort of filtering anywhere. Okay. So if there are any sort of such column which are used in a selection field or any sort of filtering and which are not having any sort of aggregation function on top of that, should be specified in a group by. So here I do have around 5 to 6 columns, out of which this all the column has some sort of aggregation function as part of that. But the very first column EBLN does not have. So I have to specify it in a group by. So I can say group by EBLN and I would be able to group the data based on a purchase order. Okay. So if you see, if you just remove this, you might observe that we are getting some sort of error which says the group by clause is missing. So the group by clause we specified just because we are using aggregation function. So group by is very mandatory. So I'll just say activate this for now. And I'll just say execute. Okay. So I'm getting this set of information, okay, as a part of my output. Here this purchase order has maximum this price, average price is this, summation of all the line items price is this, minimum is this, and it does have total 10 line items likewise. Now let's just say I want to provide some sort of filtering while selecting the data that get me only the data which is having this, which is having this likewise. So like in normal view, we provide the filtering by using a where clause. Same way, whenever we are with a CDS view which is having a group by clause, okay, how do we provide the filtering? Using a having clause. So what kind of filtering we would be interested in? Let's just say EKPO, and here let's just say, yeah, there is some deletion indicator. So let's just see, do we have any sort of deletion indicator already set? So I can say it's not equal to blank. Yeah, it is set as some sort of L. So I can say L is something which is a deleted. So it is deleted line. So realistic scenario would say, I am not interested in any lines where the deletion indicator is set. So I can say having LOEKZ which is not equal to L. Okay, so I'm saying get me only the line where LOEKZ is not equal to L. But if you see, I'm again getting one error which says the having condition can only contain the columns from the group by list. Okay, so you remember I mentioned that the columns which are there in the selection or any sort of filtering which is not having any sort of aggregation function on top of that, you have to use those in group by. So here EBLN is there in selection list, LOEKZ is there is in a filtering. So you can say group the data based on EBLN and LOEKZ. Both of this should be part of group by. The moment I say activate and execute, you would be getting only the lines which are non-deleted. Okay. All the deleted lines which are there would be removed going forward. So now I'm getting around 5868. Earlier we were getting how many lines? So let's just say if I want to check, earlier we were getting around 6083 lines. All the deleted line has been removed from this particular data extraction. Okay, so this is what we would be interested in, that we are able to get some sort of analytical output. Our main point of focus over here is how the having clause would work, how the aggregation function can be worked, and what all things we should be providing. So we should be providing the set of column where non-aggregation columns are there. Okay, in a group by, and having would be used for filtering. Seems very simple, right? Let's just go one more step forward. and learn one more function called a union function, for example. So we had discussed this thing earlier, but here we are more interested in one more flavor of the information. So we had discussed that. Let's just say I do have table called EKKO, sorry, EKKO and EKPO. I want both of this table to provide me the information. Let's just say EKKO is providing me 3 columns, for example, and EKPO is providing me few more columns. Okay, so let's just say PO is providing me header information, KO is providing me header information, this PO is providing me the line item information. And I want all this information to be fetched as a part of a single select query. So I can say if I want to get vertical concatenation of data, then I would be going with a joins, right? I can write a join between EKKO and EKPO and I get the information. Let's just say I do have a set of information available with me and it's coming from one data source. I want another set of information which is again coming to me with from another data source. Again set of information which is again coming from the same data source but with a different condition. And I want to aggregate all of those. So what I'll be using over here? So I would be using union. So if you see, join is a vertical concatenation of data, whereas union is a horizontal concatenation of data. Here it can come from different data source based on the joins. Here, based on the union, you can get the data from either same or different data source or based on different condition. The only prerequisite over here is the output column structure should always be the same. Okay, so this is the prerequisite that should always follow whenever we are going with the union. So for example, I am creating a view. We had created that earlier. Let's just try to recall, because the union has also one special treatment which it needs whenever used. I would be mentioning that as well in some time. So we already created certain unions. So I can say I'm defining a view. Let's say finished. I think we had already something called okay, it does have some records, so that would help us. So for example, I do have SQL view for this union as well. Here I do have two data source, for example. One is my EKKO, which is getting me EBLN, BUKRS, BSART, BSTY. Again, I have another set of resource. So I would be concatenating them using a union. And here I'll just say union. I can say select from ZEKKO, which is my another data source, which would give me the same set of column. Okay, so for example, I'm selecting the columns from here. For example, I am adding one more column over here called ER name. The moment I add it over here, if you see I am just getting error over here that number of fields in the selection list must be the same. So whenever you are going with the union, here number of fields whatever you are specifying in one set of selection, it should be exactly the same in a second set of selection. So if I say okay, I'm removing ER name, fine for me. Let me just select BUKRS from here, BUKRS from here. Here if you what you would get is an error saying problematic alias column name BUKRS in union 2 are not same as that of the BSART. So if you see the number of column as well as the sequence of the column should be exactly same whenever you are going with the union. The first thing, I'll just say activate. Okay. Afterwards, let's just say I'm executing this. I am getting the set of records over here. So the SQL console I opened by mistake. Number of entries are 6175. If I just go over here and I just say, what does this ZEKKO is having? Here, union is having two flavor. One is union. Another one is called union all. So when I say union all and union, what is union? Union is by default union distinct. It would check the set of record I am getting from first data source, get the record from second data source, and if there are any sort of duplicate entries, then you won't be able to get that. So that would be overruled, or I can say that would be eliminated if you are going with a union. But instead, if you also want those duplicate entries as well, you can go with a union all. I'll just say activate this. If we do have any sort of duplicate entries, then it would be, yes, it's the same thing, I guess, 6175. Yeah, it's the same thing because we don't have any duplicate entries as such. But here, union all, it means it would get all the information, even though they are unique or distinct, doesn't matter. Whereas union always get you the unique information. If I just go over here and just see how this view would be looking alike in SE11, I just go over here in SE11, I open the view. SQL view would be looking something like this. It would have these columns, maximum, minimum, and everything. Here, if you see, it is getting the data from this, and the selection condition we have specified is not something which would get a wizard based preview. So that is something which won't be over here. When I go with a union based view that got generated, here you would find that okay, here there are duplicate columns, but they are not, they are unioned. And that is why they are generated one and not the one that we can directly get over here. Here we have not specified any filter condition, that's why I'm not getting over here. If I would have specified that where my BUKRS equal to LF01 over here, and oops, sorry, there should not be any semicolon here. And if I just say SE69 ZEKKO, and for example DV01, in the moment I say activate, if I just go back, you would also get certain things in the selection condition which says EKKO's data would only be selected if comparison is turning out into true, and same goes with here. In the moment I say execute, you would get the set of records, the output as well. But this seems that we are playing around with SQL. Okay, it seems that we have a grouping function, we have a normal CDS view, we have parameterized CDS view, and all are there to present me the set of data. Now let's just think one more step forward. That consider these views that you have over here are something that is not in your boundary. It means, let's just say you got this view sometime when you were searching for your utility and you found that okay, this is very much usable. So for your any sort of reporting, any sort of application that you are creating, consider that you have a requirement of showing this analytical detail. On top of that, along with the EBLN, you also want certain material number. Okay. Now, whenever you are going with certain material numbers or something which is not part of this view, you have to enhance this view. And whenever you have to enhance this view, you would think, okay, if this is Z, let me just do that. But many a time what happens is, many projects are very restricted. Okay. you are not allowed to change any object if that is not in your boundary, that is not in the namespace that you are working on. If there are certain standard CDS views as well, then also you are not allowed to change those directly. Definitely you can change, because I hope you all know that S4HANA is open source. Okay, is open source. It means you can do any sort of change you want to do directly. You don't need any access key. But it's not a good thing, right? Because the moment you go and change anything, it would turn out into a modification, and the modified code is something which is not supported by SAP any longer. You would be responsible for any sort of output behavior that would occur. So we have to go with a generic way of extending a view. So for example, I want to extend my very first view that I created, for example, this view. I'll just say, okay, I do have this sample CDS view. Sorry, let me just open this. I want to extend this view. It has certain columns and I want to extend this. Now, if I would have a normal table or a normal view, what I might have done to extend this view, I might have created some sort of include or append structure. Okay. So CDS also works on the same way. Okay. You can have certain extension structures, but those structures are something that you won't be creating. Instead, the system would be creating those structure directly for you. Okay. How I can do that? For example, I want to extend this sample view. All I can do is I can just go over here and just say, I want one more data definition, which is, I can say ZBM22. I can say extension of my sample CDS view. I'll just go next. Go next again. Here, like you have multiple templates, if you just scroll down, you would also find something called extend view. I'll just say finish. Here you would get that you do have a web catalog, SQL view. Here I'll just give which view I want to extend. So you are saying extend view and you have to give the name of the view. So I'll just give the name of the view as a ZB22 sample CDS. I'll just paste the name over here. This is the name of my extension CDS. Here I have to give the SQL name as well. So I'll just say ES. So what all things I can pass while extending a CDS view? You can select any sort of columns which is there in the original data source. So in my original data source, what I do have? I have EKKO and I want to extend this view, for example, with a year name and AE date. If you just say control space over here, you would also get the code completion based on the fields which are there in the source table directly. So that can be one of the data source for you. Second thing you can have is also session variables if you want. I can say I want to also have the system date being displayed. You can do that. If you want to have some sort of fixed values, I can say fval as fixed value as a column. You can also extend your CDS view like this. Many a time also it might also happen that you have a EKKO, but you want company code text to be part of this view. For that, what you would need is an association. So you can also have the view extended with an associated table, but that is something we would be seeing in the upcoming session whenever we would be learning association. Till the time, just keep this in mind. What all things you can extend a CDS view with? I can say any additional column from original data source. I can say system variables, or I can say fixed values, and you can also have associated columns. You can also add new associated columns as a part of the output, but this is something we would be seeing soon. I can say coming soon. If I just say activate this, if I just go back here, and if you try either reopening or reactivating this view, here you would be getting one enhancement icon, a spiral icon, which says this view is there, but it is now extended with this particular view, ZBM22 this. If you try executing this, you would be getting those additional columns that we just specified in the extension. You won't find it in the list over here, but instead it would be there in the spiral icon. And we can have n number of such enhancement we want to perform. That is very much possible. Second thing is, as you can see in the simple SA11, this is how the view was looking like earlier. If I just go one step back, just reopen this, you would find that there is an append structure that got added by default automatically when you wrote the code for that. We didn't added anything. We didn't added anything on the wizard level. Instead, we created an append structure that got created automatically via code. So this is how you can extend a simple view. Simple view, it means it is a view which does not have any sort of complex aggregation functions or the union function attached to it. Okay. We would also be seeing how you can extend any sort of view which is containing a union clause, which is containing a group by clause, or even though a view is a standard view, how I can extend a standard view, that is something we would also be seeing right now. But this simple scenario, is it clear to everyone?
Sumit, here, since it is custom view, still it's need like extend one, like
So
directly we
if you
can.
say by this many years into SAP, you might have seen that in many a project, what we do have is a multiple namespaces. Many a time you might seen that due to certain restrictions, you would only get the authorization for the development where you are actually working. So for example, you are dedicatedly working in a MM module, so you can only work over there. Certain business processes would be there which you are not entitled to. In your organization, there might be certain utilities which are created in some another namespace, for example slash abc slash something. So there might be certain objects which are not standard, they are custom, but still you are not actually allowed to modify those because of the privileges, the kind of hierarchy that has been built. And for that also you can go with the enhancement. Okay. So if there are any short of such hierarchy, you can go with this. Of course, there are standard view. Wherever there is a standard view, there is a possibility of enhancement that of course we would be seeing right now. But yeah, for the custom also, enhancement is very much possible, and many organizations are following that because the privileges are not being provided openly to all the developers. They are only getting the authorization for the relevant development objects only. Okay, that is why. So SAP
Okay.
is thinking very broadly. It's not thinking that okay, everyone would be given the rights, because whenever there is an IT system, there would be internal audits, and wherever there is an internal audit, it needs a hierarchy saying okay, only this set of developers are there who would be working on this. That's why if you see, you might not seen SAP all being given to all the users blindly, because then of course the system, or I can say the company, might stuck in auditing. Okay, that is why. Now, if I just go one more step forward, that this was the simple view. I want to extend a view which is containing a grouping function. So it seems it's a very simple thing. I'll just say, let me just close this first, this as well. Yeah. Let's just say I want to extend this view. I'll just go over here and just say data definition. Next over here, here I'll be extending this view as well. It's a very simple thing. I'm trying to extend this view. I'll just give the SQL view name to this. Okay. And what all things I can expect? over here to come. So for example, this grouping function based view, I want to extend, and here all I want to add is certain additional field coming from the source column. So for example, I want to add, for example, company code, that I want to add a company code over here. When I just say save, you would get that I am getting an error because the column which I just added in the selection list is not containing any sort of aggregation clause, first thing. And that is why it should not be provided openly. Instead, it should also add up in a group by clause. So I have to use group by over here. Okay, seems okay. I'll just say activate this. What I'm getting is an error. When I just say open ABAP log, you would get that the parent view has aggregation function. So extension is not possible. Okay. So it says if there is a simple view, then you can extend that. But if there is a view which is containing aggregation function or group by, you can't extend that. But that is something which is not acceptable, right? Because I might also need to extend the view. So we do have an alternative for that. What you can do over here is in the parent view, you can have one more technical setting level. I can say above catalog level and annotation. I can say @abap catalog dot, it's a view and you have to specify enhancement category. So there are multiple enhancement category. By default, what we did over here is we simply selected the columns by projecting all the columns from the source to the destination. That would be the enhancement category by default. Other than that, if there are any group by clause, then also that would come as a separate enhancement category. So we want to specify what all things should be allowed to be enhanced in a view. So if I just say control space, you might get there are 4. If the view does not need to be enhanced, you can say none. So this view cannot be enhanced. If you specify projection list, it means any additional column can be added. So that is something that would be by default and that should stay. You can't remove that. On top of that, you have to specify, even though it is containing a group by clause, allow the system to extend that view. So I specified group by as well. I have to activate this. So the main thing over here is if you are trying to extend a CDS view with a group by clause, which you are not authorized to modify, and if it does not contain this annotation, you can't extend that view. For you to extend the view with a group by clause, the base view should contain this annotation. Okay, so if I just activate this, now you would be able to. If you just go over here, try reactivating, or I can say reopening this, then you would be able to find the again enhancement or spiral icon like this. If you just execute this, you would be getting the additional column PUKRS because that is something we added. And now if you just try opening this, here you would again find the append structure getting created. Okay. So this is how the grouping function based view can also be enhanced. One more step if we go forward and if we also focus on the union based view. If I just go over here and say I want to enhance this view, again we would be copying the name of this view, saying an extend, data definition, this. Just say next again, extend this view and say finish. Go over here, paste the name of the base view, create an SQL view on top of that. Okay. Go over here and say what all columns you want to extend. So I can say I want to add a ER name over here. So I'll say fine, I want the ER name, but When there is a union, it means there are multiple data sources possible. My first data source is EKKO, another one is this. So the column which you specified ER name would be added only in this block. Okay, so you have to specify all the clauses as they were earlier. So here there is a one block, then union all, then another block. So that is something you should also specify over here. So I can say ER name, union all, and then again you have to specify ER name. Okay, so this system would add the ER name in both of them. For example, you want ER name over here, but here you want the ER name to come from the session variable instead. Said current user should be considered as a ER name, the creator. So I can say current user as ER name. This is something also you can specify. Just output column should be same, and number of brackets over here with the union clause should be same as that of the base view. Again, if I try activating this, I would be getting the same error saying the view contain unions and it cannot be extended. So what I'll do, I will go in my base view, say I am going over here, ABAP catalog dot view enhancement category, and here what I'll specify is a projection list by default. On top of that, I am saying even though it is containing union, please allow extension of the same. The moment I say activate, I have to go over here, reactivate this view, go back, say execute, and here you would be getting the ER name getting populated, where for this last three, it is current user ID which is being taken up. Okay, so this is how you can have the grouping function and union based view also extended at the time of a extension. If I just open the view with a union, then you would be able to find that I have this particular view also getting extended. One more important thing we can consider is how I can extend a view if it is a standard view. So for example, I have a view which I was using certain time back. So there is a view. If you just open this view, you would find that it is containing DDL object name. I have extended that earlier. You can also extend that. If I say DDL object name over here, I want to extend this view, which is a standard view. If I open that ABAP development object saying navigate, open ABAP development object, pass any sort of name over here, you would get multiple options. Open the data definition, say OK. You would find the standard view over here. As I mentioned, SAP ABAP, or we can say S4 HANA, is open source. Whenever you are on HANA, it is an open source. So if you say, I don't want to extend, I want to modify, if you just say space, it would just give you a warning, not an error. And if you say OK, the moment you say OK, it would start the view for modification. Ideally, it's suggestible not to go with modification, so we won't be doing that. Instead, we would be just extending this view. How we can do that? You can again just keep this view as open for your reference. This is open. I can say I want to extend this view. I can say ZBM22 extend standard view. Extend standard view. Just go next. Say extend this view. Finish. And here you can specify the view that you want to extend like this. You can specify the SQL view name for the same. You can say ES. And here you have multiple data sources. So for example, I do have this DDL source, DDL dependency. So for example, from DDL source, you want one more column to come. So for example, you want the parent name. So the parent name also you want to be part of the output. So if you just say parent name over here, say save, just say activate. As this is a standard view, it might take some time for you to get extended because it might have multiple location where it might be dependent at. So it might take some time for you to check and activate all the relevant object, but it would get activated, and once it is activated, you would find the column that you extended it with as a part of the new view, or I can say the extended view. So if I just say I was over here somewhere, this was the view, and here you find the source parent. I can say the parent name column start appearing. Earlier it was not there, it just start appearing after we activated. If you just go inside, here you would find that ZBM22 ESSV added parent name as a part of the output column. If you just go back, start executing this, here you would find the parent over here as a part of the output column. Unfortunately, there is no data, it seems, so you won't find that. If there are any, you would also find the data. Okay, so it's the same plain steps that you have to follow always. If you want to extend a view, target the view, get the view that you want to extend, the data definition of that, write an extend view on top of that, and you would be able to extend it with the set of columns that you want to extend it with. So for example, you can have any column, so original data source, system variable, or the fixed values, or the associated columns. This is something that we would be seeing in the upcoming session whenever we would be learning associations. Okay, so what we did just learn is how we can have key and what is the importance of that, how the joints are working in CDS view, the grouping functions, and the extension of the views. There are certain built-in functions that we would be seeing, but let's just consider it for the upcoming session. But are we all clear with the topic that we covered till now in this today's session? Okay, so it seems everyone is very clear or is very much confused, either of them. Okay, so I would say that this is it for us that we had for today's session as a part of our agenda. We would be seeing each other in the upcoming session, and then we would be continuing with the advanced topics. So this is something that we consider is called DDL, the data definition language. Now we would be going with the association that would also be part of that. Then we would be seeing the access control, DCL. Then we would also be learning the DML, the VDM, virtual data model. So likewise, we would be going ahead with that. Okay. Any questions?
No, Sumit. Like
Okay.
regarding if you have time, like next class, can you tell like how it's linked to Fury and UI?
Definitely. Definitely. I'll be going through that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay then. Thank you everyone. See you all in the
Yeah,
upcoming session.
yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.